This is episode 105 of the Double Cross Anime podcast. I'm Whooper, and here's Mario.
I'm Mario. Hello, everyone.
Hi. We're going to catch
Hello.
up on the spring season, which just ended. Summer's getting started. A few of those premieres have already happened. We'll get to those next week. As for this week, we're going to finish up with the final episodes of Yesterday wo Otate, Kakushigoto, Kaguya-sama. We're going to do 2 more episodes of The Great Pretender, starting the Singapore Sky arc, so that's 6 and 7, and Volume 2 of Naoki Urasawa's Pluto, which has moved into its Astro Boy phase.
Yeah.
I guess I should say Tetsuon Atomu. Is that's Astro Boy. So what are we gonna do first?
All right. So I think we're gonna cover like all the three show from last seasons, like the finale of them.
Yeah.
I think let's go with Kaguya-sama.
Okay, so for
Because
this
they
one,
have,
it's
like,
episodes. Yep.
We have like 2 episodes to cover on that one.
Right, 11 and 12, because we were a week behind, or rather the show was a week behind in terms of its airing.
Yep.
So we've got 2 episodes here. Episode 11 being the one that was primarily about Ishigami, his backstory, what happened during the sports festival, etc. Episode 12 being, kind of like a conclusion, doing a little bit of a character piece, and then a silly chapter at the end about balloons.
I love that one.
Oh, did you really?
I did.
Okay.
I did a lot.
I mean, I enjoyed it too. I kind of felt that you might think it was just dumb.
All right.
So do you want to just start talking about that right away? We don't have to go in order.
All right. I can say that I have a mixed feeling with episode 11. But episode 12, they just like the comedy just hit. They just go like frying on all cylinders and it's hit mostly. Really love that.
I mean, I would say most of episode 12 was not comedic. Wouldn't you? Like, I would say that like 2/3 of it probably was dedicated to the Kaguya story where she loses her flip
Yeah.
phone, where it breaks,
Yep,
and
yep, yep.
she, she feels disconnected from her friends as a result because she doesn't have those photos anymore.
Yep, that's right. I feel like for this finale, it's decidedly low key, more low key than like the first season ending. But
Yeah.
I still really prefer this one because I think the second season have been more focused about Kaguya's character development the most, and this one like it is more about her feeling towards um feeling towards wanting to be
Shirogane?
friend to others.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
And yeah, and it is say most about like how fast he have been growing since the beginning when we see her.
I kind of feel as though it was a little bit of the opposite, actually, because if Kaguya is still in a place where when she loses that flip phone and she feels as though like she feels kind of alienated from the rest of the student council because she loses those memories or like that record of what happened with her friends. She feels as though it kind of undoes what happened, like because she doesn't have that data anymore, all those pixels. Like her relationships with these people have been weakened or severed. And because we see how she retreats into herself, like she loses the little how her eyes are like mostly red and then they have that little fiery looking lighter red color at the bottom, that pattern.
Yep.
We see that disappear when she loses her phone and she's just talking very, very coldly and like detachedly to people. And then it comes back when she gets the smartphone, and then she gets access to like the shared photo album that her friends make with her. So I kind of feel like even though we get a nice resolution to this story, it's also demonstrating that Kaguya is still pretty fragile.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
know, like if this incident of her flip phone getting broken and her losing those pictures was enough to send her into this kind of like withdrawn state. So there's
Yep.
more work to be done on her character, I think.
Yeah, well, I agree with that, with your assessment. I also see that it is like a character development for her because like at the beginning she was like hardly feel anything. She was like in her high position looking down people, and now it's come to the point that she express like she actively express disappointment, towards losing the memories of the friends around her.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. She wouldn't have been the sort of person to take those photos or to be so hurt by their loss,
Mm-hmm.
like a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yep. Yep.
So the fact that I mean, but it's true that she does feel that loss and she is hurt by it and saddened by it. But
Mm-hmm.
we also see in the scene where they're all on the rooftop and then she says, "I'll go get my phone," and she walks down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
And she's by herself. Her internal monologue, as we're seeing the images of the photos that she's taken flash on screen, is like, "Oh, this it's a good thing that this happened, because otherwise I was never going to get a new phone, and it's not important that I lost these pictures because they're just memories." So she's like suppressing what she's feeling until
Mm-hmm.
she finally acknowledges at the very end of that scene, like, why does this hurt so much? Why am I so sad?
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, the
like it's not it's this whole thing is not on the same level as like I Can't Hear the Fireworks, which was
yeah.
the season
Yep.
one ending.
Yep.
But I am glad that they ended it with a Kaguya story the same way that they did in season one, because the Ishigami stuff in episode 11, I was like, eh,
Yeah.
not a
Well,
big fan.
yeah. I feel pretty much the same. Like I always feels like we all agree. Like in the 2 weeks before that, Ishigami have something going on in his backstory, and what like doesn't matter whatever that was, he making a progress already. Like he joined the cheerleading clubs
Yeah,
that like really out of his characters to begin with, but like he enjoyed all the process. We we get the backstory, and I don't think it's really add up add more to his characters than we already know about him.
yeah, felt pretty much the same. Like I don't think it was necessary really to have him go through such like an obvious plot, to have that be part of his story. Like the there being some girl who he kind of liked, and they toss a line in there like, "It's not as though I was romantically interested in her, but I just appreciated the fact that she was kind."
Yep.
Like, no, shut up. You wouldn't like insert your nose into somebody else's business and start beating up some guy who had cheated on her, if
Hmm.
you weren't like driven by, uh, I don't know, like possessiveness. It's weird.
Uh,
It's weird that the show like busts out the violins and treats his what he goes through as like such anguish. Uh, I don't know, man. I was not a fan. I feel like Ishigami is probably the favorite character of all the epic gamers who watch this series and are like, dude, that's literally me. Um, it's just not like he's a nerd, and he's a loner, and he could have been those things even without this terrible thing he went through in middle school. He could have just been someone who was, introverted and really into games,
mhm.
and who found the need one day, discovered the desire, to put himself out there, to change. It didn't have to be rooted in like some sob story.
All right. On one hand, I actually appreciate the way that the show go this direction because it's have never they have never tried to do something like this. And Kaguya-sama, the series had always been, like they try something new. They try, like, I remember in the last few episodes they tried to be a satire of the social
Otome.
genre. Otome, yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. So this one, I think, is their attempt to go for, the soap opera over dramatic uh, you know um, stories. And the story itself doesn't show me, but I take note on the attempt.
You feel like this was satirical?
No, I feel like it just the show attempt to go for something different than uh than they usually sell.
Well, it's definitely different. But I don't think that the it's really comparable to any of the other kind of format switch ups that the show has done in the past.
Mhm.
Like, especially the way that Shirogane comes to his house when he has like the locks on the door,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
he's a neat, like he's just hiding at home, not going to school or anything. And Shirogane comes in and he's like, "Don't worry, man. I'm not gonna say whether what you did was right or wrong, but you achieved your ultimate objective. You know, Kyoko and Ko, they broke up. She's going to a different school now. Ko has been outed as a scumbag. You did the right thing. You never apologized. I always knew that that meant something." He's like building Ishigami back up. Like
Mm,
he just like comes to his house like a messenger from the heavens, and is
yep.
like, "Don't worry, bro. You were right all along." It's just
And I want you to be my side.
yeah.
God,
Yeah,
that.
it's just it laying it on way too thick. Like
Yep.
that's what it makes me think that the show was not really approaching it from any angle other than, man, look at this terrible thing that happened to Ishigami, and now
Mhm.
look at his redemption.
Yeah. All right. Backstory, big backstory that we now know more about this guy, which I don't think they really add up anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But
as long as the show does not keep revisiting this well, like as long as Kyoko just stays out of the picture and does not become one of his love interests or something, as long as the bastard ex-boyfriend does not show up at Shuchin Academy or and try to make trouble for people, then I'm gonna be all right. You know, like
I do
Ishi.
think this is an one-off thing, and I actually like the fact that at the end of the day, Kyoto doesn't really know about all this. She still really hate Shirogane. She still blame him for Kyoko and that scumbag um um breakup. So I think that's the one thing that got me. I think is that, like, doesn't matter like how uh did I just say Shirogane?
You
How
did,
doesn't
yeah.
matter. Sorry, doesn't
It's
matter
fine.
how Ishigami did, like his intention towards like saving Kyoko. At the end of the day, she doesn't really appreciate that. She doesn't really know about that, and it doesn't matter, because Ishigami has now moved on to his life, have friends surrounding him. So I think I kind of like the message. I just agree with you that they've been laying that very thick.
Yeah. Um, I'm kind of surprised, honestly, that Kyoko wasn't given the message that Ishigami was trying to save her, because in every other aspect of this story, Ishigami is like the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
So if they had gone like full idiot and been like had a scene where it was revealed to her by someone, let's say Shirogane or I don't know, one of her friends who learned the truth somehow, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh, Ko was like threatening to dump porn of you online if Ishigami, he was cheating on you, and he was gonna make your life hell if Ishigami didn't back down, and he's the real hero in all of this. And I'm really glad that didn't happen, but if it had, like it would have fit with the rest of the chapter for me. I just found it kind of distasteful.
Yeah, well, I kind of find like the present day of Kyoko, like the way that the show present her, is a bit shaky as well. So like in episode 10, we see her as like a mysterious uh person,
Pony,
like with
like,
like
who's the girl with the ponytail? Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
we
with
see just a shot of her.
a mysterious vibe and stuff, and then like at the end we see her more like, like in a different light,
Yeah, but the
um
problem is we didn't really get a chance. Like
to
there
know
was
her.
first she was mysterious, and then we see that she's like at peace, kind of talking to her friends about how like she's gonna move on, blah blah blah. Yeah,
Yep.
but we spent all that time inside Ishigami's head in episode 11, so we didn't get a chance to
Mm.
know her in the present day.
Yep.
And I mean, even in his flashback, she was hardly present. Like she shows up as the nice girl, and
Hmm.
the root of the conflict between Ishigami and Ko. And we hardly
Yep.
know anything
Yep.
about Ko either, other than that he's like a big asshole.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
It's
True.
just
True.
we, we don't know anything about these people. We would have needed like a full episode set in the past,
Yeah,
um,
I
for
agree.
for that guy's status as a villain to feel like pressing, for Ishigami's like appreciation for Kyoko's kindness to warrant his investment in her situation.
Mm.
But it was all set within the context of the sports festival in the present day, and so they had to start there and end there. Um, and one thing
Mm.
I am really glad about is that we got a very good sports festival chapter in episode 10,
Hmm. Hmm.
with
Hmm.
Ishigami's dad visiting, and like realizing that Kaguya was interested in him, and kind of angling to get her to admit that to herself. I thought that was really really clever. The way
Hmm.
that they used the new character who had been kind of dimensionalized in previous chapters, as we learned about the Shirogane family. Then they suddenly introduce him into the world of Shuchin Academy. I thought that was cool. Um,
Hmm. I like it's like that new characters. Um I like Zero and the dad, and like he basically stole this scene for me. How do you think about the president? I think of who appears in episode 12.
the president. Oh, you mean like the head of Shuchin Academy, the guy,
The headmaster. Yep.
the French guy, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I still don't understand what the deal is with him. Like the show like seems to give him some sort of significance whenever he's introduced, like, oh, it's been a while since you've seen me, huh? I don't
Mm.
quite understand that. Um, is
Mm.
he going to play some role in like a larger story about how Shuchin Academy functions like politically, or
Maybe. Yep.
I don't really get him. Like he right now he's just funny accent man to me.
Right. Well,
So I don't know.
and yeah, and speaking of like the very last one, the one that they decide, the last skit that they decided to end the whole season. I love it. I by saying that though, I don't really like find um the uh, the pun that they said like in the very beginning very funny,
What
because
where the guys thought they
I
were going to get jerked off.
Yeah, well, because I think they kind of repeated that a lot.
Yeah, they did. I think that was the joke. It was like
Yep,
funny, fast talking man.
yep.
Um, and then
But
Shirogane and Ishigami think that based on how she's describing the game that they're both about to get uh,
yep.
a hand job, which is kind of sketch. Yeah,
Yep.
that's what was going on there. That's why they're both like, I don't know how this game works, but let's just play it and see what happens. And then they end up disappointed when they learn that it's about inflating a balloon. Um, it's silly, It's just a silly. The whole
Yeah,
thing is pretty silly.
yeah,
But
but it say a lot about their characters, their personality throughout the game because like they have a chance to basically bounce off each other's. I
yeah.
love every moment of it.
All right. I don't know why you didn't love the scene in episode 8 more than where they're all in the student council room and like Ino is mad at
I
Ishigami for playing games, and
Yep,
then
I
Chica
prefer
says,
this one
"Okay, you're
much
not."
better.
Yeah, no. How? Just because it has a funny balloon? Like, why? This one's way worse.
Well, they at least they have the stake here. You know, the stake is ridiculously high here.
One
You know,
might
one
say inflated to cartoonish proportions.
Yep, one wrong step and the whole thing is explodes. It actually a pretty funny. Like when you get into that situation, you can understand why, like everyone would hesitate. It's safe for
Yeah,
Chica.
for sure. When I get into that situation, I will definitely understand why they all reacted that way. Next time I'm in a high school pumping up a giant 10-foot tall balloon. I mean, it was cool that when it exploded, it kicked off that final credit sequence where all the supporting characters like passed by the screen. That was neat. It was much better than the first season's
Yep,
credits,
yep,
which were
agreed.
just like a roll of words.
Yep, agreed. So at the end, how do you find this season compared to the first one?
Not as good.
Oh right, wow.
Season one, definitely stronger comedically, especially in the first half,
Yep.
and this one not having a big story like I can't hear the fireworks. I loved I can't hear the fireworks. Um, where you realized watching that just how like sad and lonely and scarred Kaguya was as a result of her loveless upbringing in a family that sees friendship as weakness. You know, in this one, there isn't. I would say there's no story that hits quite that hard with regard to the characters. I mean, Ino's story is pretty sad. Um, what we learned about her during the election arc, but I don't really think that touches. I mean, Kaguya is the most effectively characterized member of the cast, I would say.
Let not forget about Ishigami and his backstory story.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the season two just doesn't have something like what we learned about Kaguya in season one. It doesn't have something like on that level. Sure, we learned about
No, great.
Ishigami and what happened to him in middle school, but it doesn't hit the same
Yep.
for me. Which one
Right.
do you like more? Which season?
I actually see that they have like there are two different bits. So the first one is more about comedies. This one is more about romance. If I say which one I prefer, I would still say that I slightly prefer the first season more than this one.
Okay.
Just slightly bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think they have a lot of the same strengths.
Yep.
I think you're probably right. Like, I would have to do kind of an episode by episode comparison, but I think you're probably right that season one was funnier and season two was more romantic or dramatic.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think that checks out. All right, let's move on to either Yesterday wo Utate or Kakushigoto. Which disappointment do you want to tackle first?
All right. Yeah, there are two different kind of ending. I would let's just go to yesterday wo otate.
Okay.
Let's just dive trial dive like head fish into it.
Yeah, we'll just go ahead and do a belly flop onto the concrete that was this episode. Thoughts about, you know,
Oh my god.
Rikuo ending up with Haru?
Oh my god. I mean like I think the very first disappointment that I get before watching this finale is that it turned out the six um extra episodes were just short.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty lame.
And so that just means that it adds nothing to the overall plot, and it just means that like the pacing that we see so far that would fit into like the 18 episodes are actually condensed into 12 because I heard that they changed the ending for the anime.
No, it's from what I've heard, it's the same. I mean, I'm sure some things were modified, right? Because they had to pack it all in at the end. But he does end up with Haru in the manga.
Sorry, what I mean is like they speed up
Yeah,
the event so that it match up with the 12 episode format.
yeah, I'm sure they did, and like entire characters were cut out of the story and stuff. There's a guy who's really interested in Haru in the manga,
Jesus.
and she has a whole storyline with him, and that was entirely cut out so that it could be mostly like about Rikuo and Shinako for the last few episodes before the show bizarrely pivots away from that. And I mean, I expected Rikuo and Haru to end up together at the end, to be honest. She's introduced
Just not this
as
way.
yeah. Well, she's introduced as like the kooky girl who has a pet crow who like barges into his life and kind of makes him reconsider everything that's going on with him and stuff. And then, but that was like abandoned pretty fast
Yep.
before he goes like crawling back to her after things with Shinako go up in flames.
Yeah, well, I do agree that I pretty much see that Rico and Haru would be back together. So and I would ship their relationship as well, but not this way. Not in because like in any way like in the first 11 episode we see any affection from Rico to Haru at all.
That's I would say that's not true. Um, like
All right.
he's definitely pursuing Shinako during that time. He's not thinking of
Mm-hmm.
Haru as like, the girl, the one who he's into or interested in, the one he's pursuing. He's pushing her away at multiple points throughout the story. But there are some scenes like for example, the one where he lets her into his apartment because she's been waiting on the landing outside. Um, and they talk for a bit, and then she leaves, and he like remembers something that someone else in his life has said that kind of he relates to Haru in terms of like not
Mm-hmm.
not knowing what he's got before it's gone or something like that. He flashes back to this after Haru leaves his apartment for the night. So the show has like given its little winks and nods in the direction of that relationship, but obviously it was his story and Shinako's story that was driving the bus for this entire
Yep.
time until he literally gets on a bus in episode 12 and like has a complete breakdown while on his way to see his backup girl. That's the most ironic thing about it was that Haru was mad this whole time that Shinako was keeping Riko in her back pocket.
Yep.
But that is exactly the reason why Rikuo gets together with her at the end. He was keeping her in his back pocket. And like the
That,
show completely misses this bit of irony and has her like ecstatic that he's come crawling back to her. It's like, what the fuck?
and And even like the way that he explained to Haru why why he would interested in her right now. I think it is like a bunch of bullshit. I
Sorry.
I
Yeah, it
yeah.
is.
So
It is. He
I
says
don't
some.
even
Go ahead.
yeah, I don't even remember like the exact word that he has, but it's implying that he know that liking Haru is like a backup plan or something. It just sounds bullshitting to me.
He says something about what was it he said? He said something about like um wanting to like being loved by a woman he discovered was like really awesome, and what's so wrong
Oh
about
yeah.
like wanting to pursue that feeling?
Mm-hmm,
He
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
literally he says this to her.
Yep, yep, that's right, that's right. So basically, like he liked Haru's because he realized that the love that Haru has for him. So why not pursuing it?
Pretty much, yeah. Um, and she's okay with this for some reason. Man, now that I'm actually thinking about it, because I already did my series review on the website, but now that I'm thinking about it, like I thought Haru's character came out of this looking pretty okay, um, because
It's not.
because she was isolated from all the fuckery that was going on, uh,
Yep.
like elsewhere in this episode, and then when he comes back to her, or I guess doesn't comes back is not the right word because they were never together. But when he seeks her out and like does his little speech, she gives him a punch in the gut, uh,
Yep.
under the guise of I thought you were a hallucination or something like that. And then she's very patient and understanding as he's talking.
Mm-hmm.
There's a line that I liked in particular, where he says anything I could say would sound like an excuse. This is before he launches into his weird rambling tirade. He's like,
Yep.
"Oh, I don't want to just make an excuse," and she says, "It's even if it sounds like an excuse, I'll listen."
Yep.
And I was impressed to hear her say that because as somebody who's younger than Rico is, she's demonstrating some like a willingness to hear what he has to say. But now
Mm.
I'm realizing that like her acceptance of him is wrong in itself. She
That's
should
right.
like even if she really feels like even if she feels like a rush of affection or gratitude for him based on what he's saying, I think she has a responsibility to herself to tell him to get fucked. Uh like man, this sucks. It's worse than I thought.
Yeah. Well, just imagine this. Like someone is pursuing you, and you have like you basically just tell her to not come to see you anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, yeah, to not come to the house and stuff. And once she came, she see that he already been together with like the girl that you've been declaring war. And then like after they right after they broke up, he run into you and say that like I I know that you have a lot of affection to me, and like that feeling is great. So why not pursuing it? What? And the worst part of it all is it's not about Rico and Haru relationship. So I mean like they are still okay. I'm okay with them getting together, but they implying that Shinako and Ruo like maybe like they were pursuing like a romantic relationship as well, and I was like, what?
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense though, right? Cuz it was a love square and the two characters who were together, it just wasn't the magic wasn't happening, so they just got to switch to the two losers, like right at the very end. Switch up the pairings,
Oh my
see whether
god.
there's a spark. Um, I did think that like one of the final scenes where Shinako comes to Ro's apartment and
Yep.
like his friend from art school opens the door and the look on Shinako's face when
Yep.
she sees like this really cute young college girl uh, at Ro's apartment, and like in her mind, she's obviously thinking, "Whoops, I
Yep.
was too late." When I saw that, that made me laugh.
Yeah. My God.
It
Uh,
would have been awesome if Ro actually had moved on, because those, like, we got those scenes of him at art school with this friend group with some, like,
mhm.
some nice looking girls who are hanging
Yep.
out with him and having lunch with him, and he's kind of like an edgy artsy type that one of them might fall for. He could have just started something up with one of them. That would have been, if he had actually been together with that girl when she answered the door and Shinako's like, "Oops." That would have been the perfect ending for this for this
But
mess.
well, but that come to a question that like how would a show be so good, so sensitive, so considerate for the first 11 episode would would be so would oh my God, I want to put it very nicely, uh would scroll so bad.
I mean,
It,
because they just compacted probably volumes worth of material into the last episode.
yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, the Rikuo and Shinako relationship, the show took its sweet. I mean, the show is time skipping for a good portion of its run. Um,
Mm.
and part of that, I think it mostly pulled it off. But part of that was a 3 month time skip in episode 11 that, like, basically omitted or redacted um, the start of Shinako and Rikuo's relationship. Remember that scene in the
Mm.
grocery store where they're thinking about what they're gonna have for dinner, and they're talking about how their schedules are changing
Yep.
soon, and that was 3 months after they started seeing each other. But it was one of the first things that we saw with the knowledge that they had become a couple. So there was a long
Yep.
period of time that we didn't get to see. And even during the moments that we did see them together, it was clear that, like, physical intimacy was not happening.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, I detected pretty fast that their relationship was not working.
Yep.
But it would have been nice for us to get more of it in the first place, and then for there to be a longer period over which they, you know, fall apart from one
and
another.
and that really is sad for me because at the end of the day, I see that Haru is just like a supporting characters, uh, not the main lead, because like the whole season have been focusing more about Rico and Shinako's relationship.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not, to be honest, I'm not sure. I haven't read the manga, but I've poked around a little bit about it, especially in the wake of this episode. I was like, this can't be what actually happened. Um,
Yep.
and that, like, a lot of Haru related content was cut from this adaptation. So I think in the
Yeah.
manga she probably was on equal footing with Shinako.
I
Um,
yep. I would think the same. She have the importance of being like the lead girl, and we see very little from her in the anime, especially like whenever it come to the flashback of why she having a crush on Rico. It's just like the same freaking scenes
yeah,
every single
I
time.
thought for sure we were gonna get that at least in episode 12. I wanted to know
Yep.
what exactly the
Yep.
details were about her leaving school, whether she got kicked out or quit or whatever. I mean, we've already
Hmm.
heard from her a little bit about that, but I thought we were going to get a flashback about it, especially since Shinako was her teacher. Like, that can't be a
Yep.
coincidence that these two characters were related in that way. I thought we were going to dig into that.
Hmm.
And also about, like, the reason why she likes Riko so much. In the end, it literally was just because they met on the street a couple times, at least based on what we know as anime viewers.
Yep.
Maybe there's more to it
Yep.
in reality, but
I mean, like with like 5 or 6 more episodes, this would be really good. If they can have like the time to adapt like the rest of the materials. I don't know if they could do that in the future. I don't know if they regarding like this ending to be like good or not, because for us it's like a massive failure
Yeah. Well,
for
it is a failure for sure. But I would say I still think that this show is good.
Well, I
Um,
agree, but it's just that the finale have put it down a few notches for me
yeah.
in terms of quality.
Yeah. I guess same here. Um, yeah. The finale stinks, but
God.
I mean, a lot of what I appreciated about this series, rather than the overarching love story between the characters, was what we got in the beginning and in the middle chapters. Especially when we got like
Mm-hmm.
character spotlights, like episodes 5 and 6, when we got Minato and Yuzuhara.
Yep, yep, yep.
Minato being the photography guy who was interested in Haru from high school, and Yuzuhara being that redheaded girl who stayed over at Riko's place for a while. Um, their episodes were awesome, and
Yep.
I think the show
No,
really demonstrated a mastery of how to introduce a character and give them, a clear motivation, and kind of introduce and then tangle up their relationship to an established character in a way that like brings them into the show's universe.
mm-hmm.
And you don't see that in a lot of stories. Period. That they can do that with a new character.
Yep.
And then all the early episodes as well, like the starting ones where we first we looked pretty closely at Rico's character and how he was stuck in his dead end job, and then on to Shinako, whose tragic past was honestly actually tragic, and the show handled it, nicely. And then there was a lot of good stuff in
And
here. Just the ending was kind of poopy.
yeah, well, yeah, in the pacing, I think the pacing, like you said, like for the last two episodes have been a bit shaky, but I still really like the pacing of the shows. Um, I also like how the show have like the mastery of showing displaying like the characters, like you said, making like one of the rare show where the supporting characters are more memorable than the main characters, and I think it's like one of the show main issue as well, because like the focus on Riku and Shinako, and the way that they are, like their inability to show their uh, f- emotions uh,
Yeah.
hurt the show, I think.
Well, I mean, that was
It's
what the show wanted to show us, was that they were unable to express their emotions.
Yeah,
That's who they are.
that's
Um,
right. That's right.
which is
It
and
just
they,
it,
and
it
they,
it's
they
just
don't reach a point by the end of the show where it feels as though they've gone through like a complete arc. It feels
yeah.
as though they get 2/3 of the way
Okay.
there, and then the roller coaster track underneath them just disappears, and all the people in the cars plummet to the earth, and they all die horribly. The
Yep.
track for their characters was not completed. It's not a circuit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy the format, like the way the show present in the first half. You see like the first four character is about our four main characters focus, and then the fifth and the sixth is like about the supporting characters who come and leave. I really like that.
Yeah.
I really like the format they did, but yeah, they just grew up after episode 11. I would say 10, but 11 was still pretty good.
I had a lot of issues with episode 11, but it was certainly better than the final one.
Yeah. Damn it.
But it's fine. Like, I would still say that it's pretty good. It'll probably end up on my year-end list, I think.
Yep. Alright, let's just get to Kakushi Goto as well. Another ending.
Another ending.
Another head scratching ending. I mean,
So,
I
what exactly was the family tree here?
All right, the family trees.
The the
Yeah,
at the
they actually they introduce like a new characters at like a very end of episode 11.
uh
All right, the trees here I think is like Goto is like a illegitimate son of someone from
a kabuki actor and his
um
mistress.
yeah, that's right. So
But
all
my
right.
confusion is like, so Hime is Goto's daughter, right?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
then she has a half brother. Who's who? Like the half brother. Who are his
No,
parents?
no, 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 no. It's not the half brother actually. So like Hime is the daughter of Goto, and that boy that we see in the beginning of episode 12 is the son of Goto's sisters. So they are cousins.
My subs, which are just horrible, Crunchyroll subs or whatever, or Funimation. I don't
Yep.
know. Um, just say like half brother.
Hmm. Hmm. All right.
And I
Because
already I was
that the
about to look it up just now, but I already deleted the episode.
yeah, but that's the impression I got because you remember like he got a model, and that's the model who's was the one who gave the key to Hime to the house, and I would agree that the models is Goto sisters.
um, okay, I guess. I mean, it
Yeah.
definitely said half. You're my half sister or half brother or something. But I
Yep.
mean, I guess that makes sense. I don't know. I guess that's not that
Or
important, right? Because well, I mean,
yeah,
it wouldn't
it
be that
isn't.
important except that the show did not end up being a story of like Goto, like Goto and Hime's relationship. It ended up being
Mm-mm.
like about his relationship with the manga industry. Like the reason that he ends
Yep.
up in the hospital is because he's literally crushed by manga. And then the
Oh
reason
my
that the
god.
manga fell over on top of him was because somebody tried to read a copy in advance. Like they pulled out one of the magazines from that big stack, and that caused it to
Yep.
topple over. So there's a message in there about how like don't try to read it early. And then his relationship with Hime is restored thanks to manga because she goes and
Yep.
gets his everything that he's written, during his the time period that he is missing from his memory, and he works on manga
All
in the
right.
hospital. Like, what happened to the story about the guy and his little daughter? Uh, just trying to make it without a mom in the picture and like supporting each other and leaning on each other. What happened to that?
All right. I actually think that the show has a point of showing the present day in human point of view, because we see that like in the first 11 episode we see basically everything from go to point of view. So this time when we see Hime is more like we see like another side of the relationship, how he may perceive him, how that love from Goto influence hers, basically affect hers. So I like that. um it it just feel like it has a lot of issues though, by the way they're doing that. For once it is very cliche the way they do it. Like he doesn't remember anything. He doesn't remember he made.
Oh yeah.
What the hell?
Well, he no he he
It's
he
so
remembers Hime,
it's
but he
convenient.
thinks that he's 8 years in the past.
Yep, yep, yep. That's right. That make me uh all right. I would say like that. I have like a interpretation of this. W- how what do you think is like the first 11 episodes was like in Goto mind, that like he in the present day doesn't remember, he think that he's still in 8 years ago, and all the 11 episode that we see is like on his mind.
What?
All right, so
No, they're just flashbacks
because
for
in
us
the
to get context about his relationships and his work.
yeah, but thinking about that, like he still think that he was 8 years ago, and everyone doing the stuff that um like they keep repeating, like uh, writing that manga, drawing the manga, just so that to please him. How about like the first 11 episode was just like on his head, as he's like reliving, he actually living the time that already passed.
Um,
Do
I
you get
don't.
what I mean, right?
No, not really. No. I don't
Right.
think that the series is playing any sort of trick like that, where what we saw in any of the, what we saw in the series was actually just going on inside a character's head, or was just their memory. I mean, being a flashback, it did take place in the past, and people would have memories of it, but it wasn't presented to us as though someone were remembering it. We were just being delivered by the story these events in the
Yep.
past.
Yep.
And
Correct.
the only part of the story where we got like a clear point of view was in the flash forwards, where it was Hime who was, guiding us through that, or the other, assistants on Tights in the Wind, who were having these random meetings with characters who we didn't know yet, and like we were learning about Goto's ultimate fate and all this stuff. And I actually just realized something. So
Yep.
Hime goes back to wherever. I don't remember the names of the towns where the houses are or how they're related or anything
Yep.
like that. But she goes back to get his volumes of Tights in the Wind that he thinks he hasn't, he thinks it's 8 years ago. And she gets his volumes that he's written and presents them to him, and then he gets his memory back, thanks to the power of manga. But if he thinks it's 8 years ago, isn't 8 years ago when he stopped publishing Tights in the Wind? Because everything that we saw was when Hime was 10 years old. And now
Yep.
suddenly she's 18, so there's been an 8-year time skip. During that 8-year period, wasn't he not doing manga?
Yeah, so like he finished the manga, so he doing some more chapters, and he finished the manga before he left for good, I think, over the over someone publishing his sec- his, his personal life.
Yeah, the everything about his wife.
Yeah.
But okay, so maybe what I need to do is remember what happened in episode 11. Didn't he quit writing manga like at the end of episode 11? Or did I just imagine
not
that?
no, it not actually. So in episode 11, it said that the manga gonna be canceled, the Ties in the Wind things, but it was like a mistaken thing. So he misinterpret.
Right. I mean,
It,
there's the whole thing where he's talking about being canceled, and his boss is
Yep.
talking about color pages.
Yep, that's right.
So I guess during that 8-year period that he doesn't remember, he continued writing Tights in the Wind for part of it. And
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
hooray.
Yeah, but that come to my issue with the way with the structure of the shows, because it focused too much on the 8 years ago when Hime was 10, and on the present day, that like everything in between they just kind of skim over it, and it have a lot of detail over those 8 years. So we never really see why like we never really see first handed that Goto, how Goto quit the manga, how that news break out, and like we got the a brief flashback of Goto being crushed by the manga stuff. So it was like a lot of things that happened in that ages gap, and we don't see a lot. We just heard someone just mention it,
Yeah, it certainly comes at you fast. But I mean, I would argue that the point of this series, or what it should have been about, what it was for a brief while, uh, what it was about for a while and then lost focus on, was, his relationship with his daughter. That's
Yep.
why
Yep.
the most of the series is set 8 years ago. And I think it's dumb that I even have to phrase it that way. I think it's dumb that I have to say 8 years ago, because the present day is when Hime is 18. The way it should have been,
Mm-hmm.
to me, is there should have been a flash forward. Like, let's say the first 10 episodes are just straight up Goto and Hime. And you obviously he's a mangaka, so you can integrate plenty of his work life and the people that his relationships with people in that industry, et cetera, et cetera. But it should have been like rooted in that time period and not been an extended flashback. And then in the final two episodes, you spend episode 11 going over, you know, skipping forward just a little bit at a time and showing us key events from those 8 years. And then in episode 12, we get the 18-year-old Hime and what happens to him in the present. But even that wouldn't have explained away how dumb it is that he gets amnesia and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. He's looking for his wife. Nothing ever comes of that. There's this weird family situation where somebody is a cousin or a half sister, and none of it even and it doesn't even matter. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
huh?
They
I
have
just have a
to.
big question
They
mark
have.
above my head.
Yeah. They have too much going on without much of exposition into it.
Yeah, I don't. I'm just kind of lost. But
Yeah.
episode 6 of this show is pretty good. I don't know, the one where Hime goes to Kidzania or whatever it's called, and
Yeah. Yeah.
this autograph signing. I remember liking that one a lot.
So it turned out to be a slight disappointment for me, especially I really expect the final episode to wrap everything up. It does wrap up, but it's a pumpy ride to say the least.
Yeah, it's Oh, and Hime is drawing manga. Don't you just love
Uh,
manga? I know I
yeah,
do.
that's right. The power of manga.
That's right. Maybe the real manga was the friends we made along the way.
All right.
See everybody next time.